City have been on a really good run of late, but against Southampton, that ended. But why? In today's video, I'm hopefully going to answer that question. Essentially, it was to do with the lack of anything out on that right side. We'll get into the specifics of it. Before we do that, though, massive credit and shout out to Southampton. I totally disagree with what Ruben Diaz said about them. They are perfectly entitled to play however they damn well want. They do not want to be in the same company as Derby County with their horrendous 11 points record of the lowest points tally in the Premier League. They're entitled to play for the point and make sure that they don't equal that record. So shout out to Southampton. They defended absolutely brilliantly and made it nearly impossible for City to score a goal. Let's begin with City's lineup, then we'll touch on shape and what the problems were. A lot of controversy about this lineup when it was first announced. I don't really know why. I still haven't been able to figure out why. We have a cup final in a week. It's against Southampton, who are, I know I just praised them then, they are still, in respect of this season, one of the worst sides in Premier League history. They have managed to keep 2 clean sheets in their past 47 Premier League games. This is the level of opposition that we are talking about here. Again, not trying to disrespect them. That's just the reality. But City also had players returning from injury. Akanji, Foden and Haaland. Now, whether they start against Palace in the cup final or not, it is better to have them available as an option than not. So it makes sense to get some minutes into their legs. The other complaints were, well, there's no wingers playing, so where's the width going to come from? A fair observation, but we have seen this season against the likes of Crystal Palace, for example, that City can field a wingerless system. This isn't something new, and they can still have width in the side. The question just becomes, where does the width come from? It was pretty clear where it was going to come from on the left-hand side. It was going to be Guardiola doing his thing of pushing up to that left side. It was less obvious on that right side, but it still could have technically worked with the personnel on the pitch. It just depended how they were set up. But in my view, it just simply did not work because of how it was set up. So what City did was what they have been doing over the past few weeks with this sort of situation where the fullbacks push up, they provide the width. So in theory, this should have happened. This sort of thing here. With De Bruyne technically being quite central, Guardiola pushing up, Lewis in this case pushing up, and then you got McAtee drifting inside, and this provided an interesting scope where maybe De Bruyne and McAtee could have rotated a little bit, but you do have some quite nice small space players there like Lewis, McAtee and Foden with the game-breaking ability of De Bruyne from outside the block. This should have been enough to beat Southampton, but ultimately it wasn't. Now, why was that? Again, Southampton defended very well. Look at this passing network, for example. It's far too clustered within the centre. Doku obviously providing the width when he came on, but outside of that, certainly on this right-hand side in particular, it was the relationship between Lewis and McAtee, or the lack of a relationship, which was really costing City, particularly in that first half. We know that Foden and Guardiola have a really nice partnership with one another. We've seen that this season and even more so last season. Lewis is a midfielder. He doesn't really want to be this overlapping player. Now, he tried at times to provide that width, but more often than not, Lewis would find himself far too narrow, and McAtee also wanted to be quite narrow. So you had this sort of clustered situation, and all it meant that all City were doing was passing from left to right to left to right, with very little penetration from anywhere on the pitch, never mind on that right side. It didn't help that De Bruyne didn't have the best game. Anything that City did positively in that first half only came from that left-hand side. This is not me trying to say that McAtee's a terrible player and it's all his fault. The point is to illustrate that there was some activity on the left, not so on the right, and that's ultimately why City was so predictable and poor in my view in that first half. Again, I'm not trying to suggest that Foden was absolutely 10 out of 10 in the game and McAtee was 0 out of 10, dog shit. I'm just trying to illustrate the point here. Foden did play more minutes than McAtee. Nevertheless, these numbers are pretty damning. The number of forward passes, McAtee only achieving 2 successful ones, 0 deep completions, 0 through balls, 0 passes into the final third, 0 progressive passes. It is night and day between the two. And again, this is not about trying to shit on one and praising the other. It is more so that the dynamic worked on the left to an extent, but it simply did not work remotely at all on that right side. And to me, that is an issue of where Pep opted to try to place the width. Had he just said, McAtee, for today, you're just going to be the right winger, that wouldn't have necessarily been as much of a problem. the fact that it was supposed to be Lewis, but Lewis wasn't really doing it because he's not naturally inclined to do that. That was the problem. How did it work out to an extent on that left side versus the right? I don't have too many examples to show you on today's video. You'll notice that, again, this is a very boring game to dissect, but I'll try my best. This attack is only possible, again, because of Guardiola's positioning and Guardiola's dynamism on that left side, the relationship with Foden. So Foden wins the second ball here. He's forced out wide by the Southampton block. Then look what Guardiola does. This is really basic. He just makes a run in behind. It's simple. Foden finds him, gets into a decent crossing position. There's not enough on the cross, it's cleared away, but it's a very good idea. Look at him holding the width on that left side. That allows Foden to naturally go into the centre, and there are players occupying Guardiola out on the left. It comes to De Bruyne. He's got two options here, actually. He could find Foden, which he does do so. He could attempt the slightly trickier ball in behind to Guardiola as well. But the fact that second option is even on is once again only because Guardiola makes that run in behind. This wasn't really what was happening on the right side of McAtee, and Lewis, it was far from it, in fact. De Bruyne finds Foden, takes the touch. It's a lovely idea, but the execution is not quite there. Gets slightly too much on it, but it's a good idea to find that floating ball into Haaland. Again, I know this is slim pickings in respect of chances, but that's how bad the game was. The point being there was literally nothing out on that right side by contrast. Just one more example from that first half. Guardiola, again, being that width holder on that left side. He finds Foden, who's naturally allowed to go into the centre. There's not a weird cluster happening because Guardiola is happy to go out wide. Foden picks his head up. He plays that through ball into Haaland, and really, City's attackers and other players should be doing a lot better to be getting into that box, because whilst it was a good ball by Foden to find Haaland there, breaking those lines, there's very little that Haaland can do here because of the lack of options around him. Foden can't get into the box. He's just played the pass. De Bruyne's just about getting into the box, but there's not enough bodies in and around it. But at least there was a chance to potentially do something. This is a really extreme example. Maybe it's not fair to use this one, but I'm just using it to illustrate my point. This is the on-ball right winger, in theory, passing to the on-ball right central midfielder, whatever you want to call that sort of player, the one who should be in the right half space. But you've got McAtee out on the right wing, and then you've got Lewis there. So once McAtee receives the ball, he doesn't really have that option like Foden did, where Guardiola was going to make that run in behind. Lewis can't really make a run in behind if he's the one playing the ball into him from midfield. And again, his natural inclination is to go into the centre. So if we started with the idea of, okay, McAtee, you're going to be the right winger, it's fine for you to be there, and then you can create overlaps around that. If that's your starting point, that's a different conversation. But that's not what Pep opted to do. I don't think I need to tell you who is who here. There's quite a good amount of activity out on that left side, less so from McAtee. So how did Pep remedy that in the second half? Well, he definitely brought on Savio, Nunes to give that side some right-sided presence in the match. No. That's the exact opposite is what's happened. The left side was improved with Doku coming on. Against a side like Southampton, you want your game-breaking dribblers on the pitch, not a problem. But the right side was just abandoned. Very odd decision-making by Pep, in my view. Just pretend McAtee's Doku for a second. So Doku came on, that's absolutely fine. But then Foden, who in my view was our best player in that first half, was then just shunted out to right wing, where he was still actually able to do some bits and bobs, but was nowhere near as influential. And then even more bizarrely, Pep decided to substitute him. Incredibly odd decisions by Pep, in my view, waiting until, what was it, the 75th or 85th minute for Savio to eventually come on. And by that time, it was basically too late. The match was, I was going to say the match was lost, but the match was drawn. It felt like a loss. It was a really deflating result. And I'm sorry that I've not really been able to provide too much analysis in respect of the screenshots like I like to do. There was just barely anything to even bother talking about. It was that bad, to be honest with you. This was the only relatively interesting thing that I could pick out from the match. And even then, I don't think that this has been a particularly interesting analysis, so I apologise for that. But don't blame me, blame the players, and more importantly, in my view, I love Pep Guardiola, but I think he had a really bad performance. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you were still able to get some sort of entertainment and value from this video. Different video that you could watch would be a new series on the channel. It's called Ask Nobbins. It's a Q&A style video. If you want your comment to be featured in the next video, go watch this video, leave a comment, and I will reply to as many of your guys' questions as I can in the next installment, which will be released on Monday. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you next time.